Welcome back to the Sean Trey Show. I've got a special guest with me today, Bill DiLuigi. And Bill, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'm a full-time songwriter here in good old Nashville, Tennessee, and also
Nice.
write songs for other people for a living for a publishing company. But I also put out my own little records here and there, sort of Americana, John Prine-ish vibe, Steve Earle. You know, I like that stuff. It's just for my own guilty pleasure.
Hey, man, you got to have it, right? Well, I found your music. I came across. I was so as I've been building this out, this podcast is a new endeavor of mine. I've been working as a writer director for a long time, and I just was like, one of the things that was feeling is that I wanted to find a way to help other people feel inspired to kind of follow their dreams. And so I was searching for the hashtag Songwriter on Instagram, and some of the stuff that you had written popped up, and it was really nice, man. And I wanted to reach out because of that.
Well, thank you.
When did you? Awesome. Yeah, I think that Instagram is this untapped mine of awesome talent. So, when did you get into music? Let's go back to the beginning. How did you get into music?
I got into music like I would say in the 4th or 5th grade, and probably the 4th grade. I wanted to play guitar. Well, first I wanted to play drums, and then I took some drum lessons, and then I saw the Beatles on television, and I was like, okay, I think if the drummer's way in the back, the girls are never going to see him. So I'm going to play the guitar. So I switched from drums to guitar, and just, I got the bug probably in 4th grade or 5th grade, and was just obsessed with guitar stuff, and had a little band, in 6th grade. Started in about 6th grade. We played the spring concert. It was like a piano, drums, and me on guitar. And I remember we played In the Midnight Hour and Lady Madonna. And for the spring concert, we were called The Quotations. And yeah,
that's a great name, by the way.
So that started there, and then went for a series of bands, and till I was till in the mid '90s when I switched gears and started doing the Nashville deal. So yeah, I was just obsessed with it, man. I remember going to the park and seeing those Fender amps, with the red or the blue pilot light glowing in the dark, and all, and just like, wow, that was just like something that reverberated right into my soul. I wanted to do that.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Now, so did you grow up in Nashville, or did you move to Nashville for the industry?
No, I grew up in Philadelphia suburbs. So I moved to Nashville. I didn't move to Nashville till 2005 when my whole course changed and everything. But I grew up in the suburbs of Pennsylvania and in Philadelphia, in a small town of about 9,000 people, sort of a mill town. You either worked at the paper mill or the steel mill in the next town. It was just your all-American kind of small town,
Yeah. Growing up, what type of musical influences were you getting exposed to, early on, growing up in that part of the country?
It was a really broad palette of musical influences. So I remember in school, I joined folk guitar club, which was basically, they taught you a lot about, Pete Seeger and Delta blues and fingerstyle guitar and all that stuff. Then the radio, like I had older sisters, and they played Motown music all the time. So there was lots of vinyl floating around with Motown. The radio in those days was really, you would hear a gospel song, you'd hear a country song, you'd hear a rock song, like on the pop station was so eclectic that any song could kind of become a hit. A song from a show would become a hit. Yeah. It was just a really different time for maybe it's not so different. Now Spotify has kind of taken that role. Streaming has kind of taken that role of giving us introductions to music we never would have heard before. And back in those days, it was like, yeah, this is great. I like it all. It's all great.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that you point out that, because one of the things that before Spotify, it was what was it? There was another one, that Pandora Radio came along just before Spotify got big, and that was one of the things that that blew me away with Pandora. Because I grew up, listening to radio stations, driving everywhere, and it was different too. That there was this. You were getting, I'm sure you could go to different stations, but they were introducing you to new music, and one of the things that the functions that I thought was so always interesting, and you have it on Pandora, you have it on Spotify as well, is where you can select a station now based off of a song. So you can kind of, start with a reference point. Say you like a certain song by Led Zeppelin or the Rolling Stones or something, and then you pick that song, and then it kind of broadens out all of these things that are kind of similar. And it's just one of the coolest features, because I'm like, wow, I never knew about all these other people that are pretty amazing and just have a different, it might not have ever gotten the same level of exposure as the Stones did or Led Zeppelin.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it's pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah. Right. Now, so you're primarily, of course, you're a songwriter, but like your main core instrument's guitar. How do you go about creating your own music? What's your songwriting process?
The process, it's several different processes depending on what we're working on. So here, primarily, I write I have a publishing deal with a Music Row publisher. So a great deal of what I do is writing for modern country. Nice. What that involves usually is one of two things: writing with somebody at another publishing company, and who's plugged in as well and like knows who's looking for songs. If Kenny Chesney or Eric Church or whatever is looking for music, we get together, and generally, one of the biggest jobs of a songwriter is to be a good sponge. So we soak up life every day. We soak up life and we take notes mentally or put them in our phone, and ideas or things we hear. We have these little titles or little snippets. So we meet at somebody's, either my office, our office is on Music Row. A lot of the offices are on Music Row or their office, and we meet at 10:30 a.m. or 2:30 p.m. and we create something, and we talk about what's going on in our lives. That's one way it happens. More commonly, the way most of my songs, I'd say, probably about 80% of my songs have ended up on somebody's record, is an artist is in town or they're here and they're like, I'm writing for a project. And so we'll get together and they'll say, I want to write a song about my mom, or I just, want to write a song about being 17 again, and so we'll create a song. We'll sit in a room for a couple hours. I'll say a little prayer first because I need inspiration, because we write the same basic 10 themes 30 times a month or 25 times a month. So it's like we're always challenged to find a new way to say it. So we'll sit in the room for a couple of hours and go back and forth. And generally a draft of the song that's pretty much completed will happen in the next 3 to 4 hours. And then we might go back and, hey, we'll think about it and live with it and go, we should do this or change that melody. So that's kind of the way it happens. There's two other things that I do a lot of is writing for myself, which is really the old-fashioned way of grabbing a guitar and sitting on the edge of the bed until something good that I like comes, That's the old-fashioned way. That's the way I thought songwriting was until I got into commercial songwriting. I thought that was the only way you did it. And
see, that's an interesting contrast that a lot of people might not know about. That there is, again, people have this preconception that and the same thing applies to like cinema people that write for movie, or not movies, but more TV, when you get to like into these commercial publications, like people have these ideas that it's going to be like this, but in reality, it's much more structured, it's much more almost business-like, of course, kind of, it is business-like, it has to be.
Yeah, it is. But, you can support it. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, what do you, I mean, obviously it feels like your heart is in the stuff you write for yourself, like how do you find your own inspiration to write these songs that you put out? Because I mean, I was drawn to your music by what you were writing and what you were putting out on your own personal Spotify, so I was really drawn to that. Where do you get your inspiration?
That's usually, again, a lot of the inspiration comes from everyday life, or well, in the case of I don't know if the record that's out there on Spotify, I'm so bad at that stuff because I'm usually writing songs for everybody else. I know I'm out there on Spotify, and I imagine the record that's out there is Pennsylvania Avenue, which is really just an autobiographical. Yeah, it's just an autobiographical record. So the inspiration for those songs in particular was how I wrote that record was I'd write on Music Row every day, or I'd write for a film and television show. And then I'd come home at night and I'd be thinking about something that I grew up, like I'd like to recapture that memory, or, there's a song about my mom, there's a song about my dad, there's songs about my hometown, like all your typical things. So late at night, I would give myself I'd cut myself some slack and let myself write something that really was deep in my own soul, and I just I wanted to tell those stories again. I wanted to dredge those stories up and kind of just, although you may not have grown up in my town and you didn't camp out by the creek and shoot BB guns, you grew up in your town and you did something that was just as impactful. And you had the same kind of friends and the same kind of heartbreak and the same kind of love and all that stuff, So I tried to just in relating my story, give other people a chance to put their story on top of it some kind of way.
That's beautiful. And that's kind of a theme that I keep coming back to, and some of the stuff that I'm talking to people about is that music at its core is this powerful tool for empathy. It's a powerful tool that can connect us, because I think that we go through our lives feeling, a lot of people feel really alone, and, then it's like, why do people listen to like sad rock or something when they're down? Because you understand that, hey, you're not the only person going through that. Or then an inspirational song is a song that can lift you up when you need to be lifted up because someone else has been there. And so it's a really interesting, you touch on that as well. What type of music inspires you? What's your go-to music when you're feeling like you need some inspiration?
Again, I'm so eclectic with what I like.
That's awesome.
If I really want to go to the well, just to feed my soul, I'll put on some Bob Dylan. I'll put on Guy Clark is probably one of my favorite all-time songwriters. Nice. The way he tells a story is, I'm just endeavor to be that good at telling a story,
Right.
I just listen to, like for my own pleasure, I get into those guys, I'll go back and listen to, and this is really old stuff, but like Tom Waits and Dan Fogelberg and
nice.
These guys were just masterful. They were Warren Zevon and, Jackson Brown to some extent. They're just the old, that's the old singer-songwriter vibe. When I need a little, I listen to worship music. When I just don't want to think about music, I just want to have my soul lifted up, like you said, feel better about life, and feel good.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I really, my wife is a singer, and she's a singer to her core, and she was actually the first winner of Vietnam Idol. So she's like, she's been a professional singer since 2007, and she's working on some new stuff right now. And it's interesting that like when she writes things, she really always goes to her core. What are the things that are weighing on her? What are the challenges that she's faced in life? And it seems that it's a common theme for most songwriters is to find that own, not trauma, but the challenges that a person has gone through. And it's really special like that. Now, I want to go back to your earlier life. So you got into guitar. Did you do any formal music training later on in life? Or were
here and
you
there,
just,
not much.
Was it all self-taught?
We, I first just got the guitar. I took lessons. I'd say when I was in whatever it was, 4th or 5th grade, I took lessons for about 9 months. And then I got into,
Nice.
Jamming along with the records. And then we had all the neighborhood garage and basement bands, and I think that's where I really learned to play and to improvise and to how to play with other people well. And then, then I did take some lessons a few years later, but that's the extent of my formal training on guitar. I do what I do. I have some bad habits, but there's a certain style that some people like what I do on guitar as well, because it's kind of rough and different. But that's about the extent of it. Yeah, I learned an awful lot by learning cover tunes and playing in neighborhood bands,
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, is there what would you classify it? I mean, I know this is tough classification stuff, but are not the most fun. But what type of style is your music that you would think?
My own record would probably fall into the catch-all category of Americana. It's a very broad category these days, but I would say that if it was on a rack, if it was on Spotify playlist or something, it would probably be under Americana. Maybe country, not really solid country, but more Americana-ish.
Nice. Well, with your interest in music, what are some of the acts that are out nowadays that kind of inspire you, or things that you would say, hey, that's something? Do you go and start listening to music, out that's coming out to say, hey, this is a new style, I like this? What do you do to see some of the trends that are coming out?
I do that a lot. What happens is, now the other part of what I do a lot of is film and television music for different shows and movies. So what I end up doing is, if it's a show that, I'll get a call from a friend, we need some, whatever the style is, they have this thing called Tune Find, which you go on and you pull the show up. If it's Grey's Anatomy, for example, it's Tune Find. So every song they've ever used in an episode of Grey's Anatomy is out there. So you can go click. You get 60 seconds of each song. And that's how I discover a lot of new music and get inspired. Like, wow, that's really different, or there's a lot of indie stuff that gets used, a lot of, that's not mainstream at all that they'll find. That's their jobs. They curate 24/7. So they will actually go out on YouTube and these places and just look at people's channels until all the music supervisors want to be that woman or man that goes, I found, so-and-so, whatever, because then it's a feather in their cap, oh, this is the new thing. The new thing is always the new thing, So that's how I hear a lot of stuff.
That's really interesting.
In that little journey. Yeah.
Nice. Now for people, a lot of my fans are not necessarily in the States. Well, tell me, why is Nashville so important to music?
Nashville is like, it's always been a music city since its inception. It started very kind of organically here, where there's a bunch of houses. Have you ever been to Nashville?
Yeah, I lived in Nashville for a while when I was a kid.
You lived here. Okay, well then,
yeah.
Interestingly enough, all the houses, it just came organically, all those little houses and everything on 16th, 17th, 18th Avenue. A publishing company would move in, a record company would move in, and then the people that take the pictures or do the whatever, it all started happening. And then people would go to lunch and, at the local Meat and Three or at the Shoney's or something, they'd start talking about, hey, we need some songs for this. And so this real organic community came out. It wasn't like, let's get our pitch together and go, find a way into these, it was very organic. And that sort of low-key atmosphere has pervaded here, even up until now. I mean, there's a lot of high-pressure stuff, but it's nothing like, It's nothing like the soundtrack of LA or New York. You know, there's just a different energy here. There's a different vibe, and it's a place where I think you can feel free to create and without a lot of pressure or, I mean, you can just feel free. It's the only town, and I've done music stuff in all three towns. It's the only town where I believe the song, especially the lyric, everything serves the song and the lyric, as opposed to the song being a piece of plastic jewelry to parade around the machinery. It's kind of the opposite here, and that's why I think we get such great songs. Not that great songs don't come out of those places too, but where we get really heart songs here.
Well, that's something that you hit at. Like, I was talking to a filmmaker last week, and one of the concepts and the ideas that I was saying was that when people make something that's just like to make, you know what I mean? It's just this flashy thing that, you know, hey, look at this, it's fun. It's very different than when people make something that has soul to it, you know, that has a purpose to it, that has a message to it. And I mean, I grew up with a father who was always, you know, preaching to me about, you know, having a life of purpose, having almost like a mission, you know, to what I was doing. And that's come through in all of my filmmaking and in what I do with my wife with music. But it's really interesting that you bring that up. Now, do your own personal beliefs play into what you write and how you try to like make an impact with your music?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, I think not that I try to. It's just I think you write who you are. You know, and like who you are, whatever it is, it's going to come out, even if you're writing with other people. And there, you know, it's just, you know, you write your heart. So, I mean, of course, I can sit in a room and go, you know, manufacture something. And sometimes it is on the borderline of that, especially if I'm writing with an artist who's like, you know, 22 years old, and basically what they think about is girls and beer and trucks, you know? So it's like, okay, that's probably going to be the idea. So let's try to put a little depth in it, you know, if we can go there. But we all try to get on each other's wavelength, but who you are will come out. Yeah. You know?
Nice. Now, do you have any stories from your past that really kind of shaped who you are as a songwriter? Are there any, like, you know, memories that you have that are like things that you go back to, or just events in your life that were really transformational in ways for you?
Yes, I would say this is one. It's kind of supernatural, and I tell it to people, but it's really strange. It's really even strange to me.
I like that.
My cousin Anthony, who lived I lived in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. He lived in a town called Westchester, where Westchester University is. And he was older than me, and he played folk guitar, you know, and he could play Lemon Tree, and he could pick out, you know, This Land Is Your Land, like the Woody Guthrie and the Pete Seeger and all that stuff. And he was pretty good. I thought he was great, you know. And I remember they had a swimming pool, so sometimes on the weekends we'd go over to their house in the summer, me and my sisters, and we'd hang out at the swimming pool, and he would play, you know. And the first time I went and he played, I remember this. Now, it seemed like, you know, a 2-hour ride from their house to my house, which was probably really a 20-minute ride. But when you're a kid, for some reason, it always seems like it's a journey that takes forever, you know, to go to your uncle's house. But
right.
I remember listening to him play guitar all day by the pool. And then when we were driving home on this windy road through the country, you know, I could hear that music in my head. Like I literally could hear it as if it was coming in the windows. Like it was like the gift of music was being imparted to me or something, you know, or the desire to do it. I literally could hear those songs. And it's the strangest thing. I can't explain it except to say that it probably was supernatural. And that really impacted me, you know, to want to do it. And I told I was at a yard sale with my grandfather like the next week, and they had a plastic guitar, and it was like 50 cents. And I said, "Oh man, can I have that guitar?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, I'll buy you that guitar, and if you practice on it for a year, I'll buy you a wooden guitar." So I was like, okay, and I did, and I got a wooden guitar after a year. So, that was impactful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's powerful, man.
Yeah.
That's really powerful. I tend to believe in, I'm a huge believer in events like that. So it doesn't sound out there to me at all. Now, what were some of the, when you started playing the guitar, what was it like for you? How did you feel when you got going in it? Did it come naturally, or was this something that was just awkward to you? It was great. It was awesome.
No, it came naturally. It came really naturally. I was, when you're young and you find something that you love, you get obsessed with it, and it's all you want to do.
Right.
So I spent a lot of time, like at first jamming with records, and then I remember this is really dating me, but back in that day, I remember my mom would take me to the store so we could buy a book of 50 popular songs, and it would have really old songs, and it would have stuff that was on the radio, a couple months before, and I would learn them and try to sing them. And then I remember on the Sunday paper, they would have the number one song or the top 10 song. You would wait all week, and then the Sunday paper would have this little thing about who wrote the song, what the song was about, who recorded it, and a chord chart. So I was always really excited to get the Sunday paper. That's awesome. Yeah, to see,
that's really awesome.
What's it going to be this week, So, it came really natural to me, and got my first electric guitar a few years later, which was super exciting. Silver tone electric guitar with the amp in the case, you set the case up, cool. And the amp was right in there, and it was so cool, man. It's
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Really cool. I remember my first guitar, and it's I wish I still had it. It's that, but it's impactful, when you get that for the first time, and you start playing it, it's special, Now, for you, what is? Do you have any Let's look at it this way. If I was able to, take Aladdin's lamp and kind of rub the genie lamp, you get 3 wishes. What would you like to wish for your own music?
Well, let's see. I would like to have. I would really love to have my record or the next record I make get exposure, nice. And airplay on more than just a little bit. I would really like to have people hear that record. And, that record took me, like I said, it took me about 8 years to write. I wrote 70 songs over 8 years when I got home at night from my day job, which was writing songs for other people, so it was like my little part-time job.
Wow.
Out of those 70 songs, I picked 11. And it told that story. So I would really like to share that story with the world. I guess a second wish would be something in the film and television realm. I've had a lot of stuff in film and television, but I'd like to get a really big one, something that's, a beginning credit or an end credit on a really big movie. I've write with so many talented artists and people here that I would love them to get exposed as well. The talent's just stupid
right.
in everywhere, but Nashville, New York, and LA, you can't. Yeah. They're waiting in line to get turned down, and it's just.
Right.
I would love to have. There's a couple artists that I work with. One in particular, a guy named Adam Crossley, who we've done a lot of fantastic. Film stuff, and would love to see him get back on the charts with a couple songs we wrote, and I'd like to land one. I guess my third wish is that I could help other people. If I would get a little more profile, then I could share a little inspiration or maybe save people some mistakes along the way, cut some years off their journey, and sort of pass it along down the road, by virtue of having more profile doing those other things,
That's awesome. Do you have, let's imagine this way, because you touched on something that I was going to ask later. if you could go back and give advice to your younger self, what type of advice would you give yourself?
That's a good question. I think I would have said, like, just be creative and be less self-conscious. Be less conscious of trends and write your heart. Say what you want to say. Don't be so clever. But these are all things that writers learn along the way. You know, from being a film director, you want to make a movie that nobody thinks they're watching a movie. You think that you're just part of the story. And that's what a song is. I don't want you to go. And in the beginning, I'd be like, look at me. I learned how to write Nashville. I can write these clever things. And it's like, clever's fun for a minute, but then people forget it. But they remember the heart. So I think that's what I would tell myself. Don't be so self-conscious. Write your heart. Be creative as you want to be. And don't compare yourself to people. That'd be the other thing. Like, don't think, and any human being I know has done this. I remember doing this when I was 14, and the kid up the street was 16, and their band got to play at the swimming pool dance or something. I'd be like, he's 16. I'm going to be 16 and I haven't played there yet. I would follow that right down through life, Yeah,
right. I feel you on that. I think that it's so easy for people to dive into that comparison. It's so easy for us because, I think since we're little, we are brought up to kind of compare ourselves to others and to see, how am I stacking up? And it's the whole school system, the standardized test. Everyone's got to get the exam at the same time. But the reality is maybe that's not your aptitude. That's not what you're good at. You know what I mean? And we don't praise people for being special and unique. My daughter, I'm living in Vietnam right now. And, we're dealing with another lockdown. And so I've been homeschooling my daughter. And it was interesting because we had a tutor online today. And I was doing some of the homeschool. And my daughter was doing this interesting thing. Like, the teacher was like, can you make the shapes of the alphabet with the clay she was using? It was just like a little modeling clay. And the tutor just wanted her to make the letter A, and then they move on to the next letter. She wanted to get through the whole alphabet. But my daughter was like, so it's like A for apple. So my daughter made the letter A, but then she turned it into an apple. So then she had like a little stem coming off and a leaf. And it was awesome. And I was like, and then the teacher's like, let's go quicker. Let's get to the next letter. And then I was like sitting there, and I sit in on these tutoring sessions because I have a tutor help out because I need her to learn 2 languages. She's learning English from me and then Vietnamese from the tutor. And so it was really interesting at that moment. I was like faced with this. Do I want to make my daughter conform, or do I want to validate something that's really awesome that she's doing? And at that moment, I told the tutor, I was like, you know what? Let's just go at her speed and let's let her do this. Let's let her really explore this because, she got this amazing artistic talent. And I've noticed this with my wife. My wife is really artistic as well, and she's been developing that in my daughter. And it's really interesting that when we try to put people in a box, and that's one of the things when I lived in LA, I lived in Nashville, never lived in New York, but LA was one of the things that was really challenging for me in the industry in LA, whether music and film. People really want to put you in a box. This is who you are. This is what you do. If you're, and I started out in acting, and it's even more so. Like, you have your checklists. What are the skills you can do, and and like once you create this box of who you are, and it's like that doesn't represent me. You know what I mean? And I'm certain as a songwriter as well. Like, you're not a bunch of check marks. You are this individual, and even more so with singers. And one of the things that you really hit on, and I really love that you said today, is like, songwriting is not just about a string of words. It's storytelling. Good songwriting is storytelling. And with that story, you're hoping to build an emotional connection. And then, like, to me, I think it's almost like you were saying, that supernatural experience, call it what you want. It's almost like it's magic. Like, music to me has a magical quality because it really transports us into this place where we can have connection with one another, and that to me is really special. But what do you think of with, like, if you were to be teaching another songwriter, what would you kind of do to help guide them? What would you say to songwriters that were coming up to really do it well?
Well, I try to, and I've done quite a bit of this, teaching at seminars, and I do it in all different fashions. We work with veterans. Sometimes we'll go away with their families for a weekend, and
That's
they'll
awesome.
Write their stories and stuff like that. I just like the basics. Here's what I would say. It's a lot, but I guess I would say, to try to encapsulate it, I would teach the basics and then encourage, once you understand the basics, to forget about the basics and go ahead. It's a combination of structure and movement. It's sort of like martial arts in a sense, where there's
You're
form
speaking my
and
language there.
Okay. Well, I've done martial arts for years, so it's like I get that.
I'm going to ask you about that
in
after
martial arts, you learn a form, and it's like, this is the form, whatever, if it's kung fu or whatever, and then it's like, discard the form, because in learning the form, you've learned how to fight. So in learning the form of writing, you learn how to write, and then you learn how to write from your heart. And hopefully, the form will become transparent. And what people will experience is that transcendental experience of somebody's heart. So that's one thing I would definitely encourage people to learn the basics first, though, because I know the mistakes I made at first, as far as like not knowing any structure, and I needed to get structure and learn some basics, because these aren't rules that we learn. These are tools to help us be better writers, And if we look at them that way, and again, when you're in a commercial town, and especially when you're new, you can get caught up in like, well, they said, and this person critiqued my work, and from being in LA, so this means I must do this always because he said so and he has success, or she said so. So I would encourage them to learn the basics and then discard them, and try to find, the other thing is try to find a new way to say it. I don't want to hear a song that says, I'm sad, I feel sad today. I want a song that tells me I'm sad today. There's a broken window. The air's getting in the window, and there's no sound in the house, and that tells me somebody's sad. So I'd say show it to me. Don't tell it to me. So there are some of my basic things, and I would encourage people to listen to whatever their commercial endeavor is, but to not get too involved with following trends, because whatever you're listening to right now was recorded a year ago. So it probably means it was probably written 2 years ago. So what's happening in the future is already coming out. So please don't follow trends.
That's a good point. The trends, right? Because things take time. It's almost like you have to focus more on like, truths, overall transcendental truths that, are just part of our world and part of our life, because a current event might not stick around, but yet the idea of loss does, the idea of love does, the idea of heartbreak, or pain, or these things are things that can kind of transcend that. Now, what are some of your favorite experiences that you've had with writing? Do you have any favorite memories, or just favorite songs that you've had?
I do. I have several experiences like that. I guess to sit at the Grand Ole Opry and hear somebody sing my song on that stage was a really good experience. Recently, I just did that and watched them stand.
One of your songs.
One of my songs, a guy named
that's awesome.
Johnny Lee, who was in the Urban Cowboy. He's been around forever. He sang that song "Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places," and which is part of the American Songbook now. And so he was performing at the Opry. He recorded a song with his daughter, who I work with. We wrote a song about Johnny, and he asked her to come out and sing it on the Opry stage. So she came out and sang it, sat in that circle of wood where, you know, everybody from Jimmy Rogers to Hank Williams Sr., you know, everybody that's ever been has stepped in that circle. So that was a really good experience. You know, I guess seeing my songs on the top 100 chart, the Billboard chart, or in a movie, you know, awesome. I remember the first time I saw my name in the credits on a movie, like for a few songs, it was very exciting. This one is one, probably might top them all. It was, so Hank Williams' granddaughter, Hillary Williams, who's a fantastic artist. Her producer's out in LA. She was making a record a few years ago, and I was asked to write a couple songs with her for the record. And so we were writing a song, which made it on the record. The record's called My Lucky Scars, and we wrote a song called Beautiful Things. Mm-hmm. And we were writing the song, and she is a fantastic soul, and she looks exactly like Hank Williams Sr. She's got the same facial structure, the same eyes. So you feel as if you're looking into the very face of country music when you're co-writing a song with Hillary. And so I was like a little intimidated, and then I thought of an idea for the second verse, and I thought, well, these are the kind of lines that they're very strong lines, so you'll either love them or you'll hate them. They're going to create a reaction. I was like, should I even bother to put it out? And I did, and she looked at me for a second. I was like, oh shoot. And then she said, yeah, let's put that in. That's something like my granddaddy would say.
Wow.
And I kind of went,
wow. That must have been just like,
like, wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's a compliment and a half right there.
That was a big compliment. So that kind of went, all right, that's like validation, you know, being on the right path, I guess. So there were a couple of my favorites.
Yeah. That's awesome. I think that, like, I don't know if a lot of people can understand, maybe a teacher, when, a student comes back years later and says, you were one of the most influential people in my life or something like that, but when people see their names in the credits, it's like, and one of the things too, that like, we tend, and this is one of the motivations of my channel, was to tell the stories of other people in the music and film industry, not just the stars. Everyone talks about the stars, but like, they don't realize that, granted, those people have worked hard too, but they're not the only people in the industry. And there is an army of people behind them that make possible what they are doing. We see these people, and we see, all the stuff that, and it's like in all industries, like, I'm a huge fan of Dwayne Johnson, right? I like The Rock. I just like who he is. And,
Me too.
He's a positive. And his messages, you look at his Facebook or you look at his Instagram, and it's all about just be a positive guy, right? And he comes up with his new tequila brand, right? And one of the things that I like about him is that he's got this new tequila brand, and he's posted about it, but he's also posting the stories about the people who made it with him. Like, he's like, this is the family that I partnered with in Mexico, and without them, I can't do it. And I love that, because it's like, and also another really good person for that is Jason Momoa. If you watch his Instagram, Jason Momoa is always giving credit to the people around him who are doing amazing things. And that, to me, is beautiful, because, we need to recognize the people that are building this mountain. You know what I mean? That we all partake in. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, man.
It's so true. I mean, I'm a working songwriter. I make a living, and have been making a living at being a working songwriter for many years. And there's times where I've been independent and had my own company, and there's times where I've had a co-publishing arrangement, and I do now. So I'm the working guy. I get up every day and I put the uniform on, and I write a song or two. Mm-hmm. And try to explore every avenue, and it's a surreal kind of life. It's like 1 minute I'm putting out a song, by the way, sometime this probably before Christmas, called "Here in Music City," and it's going to be just my own my
Oh,
own
nice.
song, me singing it. And it's kind of the experience of what you're talking about. If you're a working writer in LA or a film director or somebody that's making movies that's not making the big movies, or if you're, somebody with a startup business, or like me, a working songwriter, you'll understand this song. And that's what it's like. It's surreal. It's like half your friends, get famous and maybe you don't. Like you go to the Grand Ole Opry to hear your song, and then you drive home in a 12-year-old car. It's that, like, you got one foot in both worlds.
Right.
You write with famous people, and then you go home and you have two roommates because you're trying to pay the rent without having to go work at Home Depot. So it's that's the
Wow.
that's the everyday of it, and it's the grind of it. And, because until you get a big hit, and even when you get a big hit, nobody stays on top. It's just a constant shift. A few people, a few people get to that upper echelon and stay there. But by and large, it's people like us, that are out there doing it and making a living at it and feeling lucky and blessed to do that.
Right. And that's the thing, is like, you're in the grind and it ain't easy, but I think one of you find yourself thankful for it, and blessed at those moments when you can, but you're also, God knows, I also sit there and say, please, Lord, maybe can you make this journey sometimes a little bit easier, but I'm thankful as well for the struggles I've had, because they've made me who I am, and I think that's something that I look at too when I see those two worlds, foot in this side and a foot in this side. It's really interesting when you see that, but I think it's so important for artists that are making it to also give credit to those people that helped them on the way, and to give credit to the people that helped them come up, because and you see that at the Oscars, like, or the Grammys, where people are actually on stage and they say, hey, this is it, and then they cut them off all the time. But like, one of the things that always cracks me up is like, all those people on stage, that anyone, a producer, singer, songwriter, a director, there's a list of names and they never can say them all. There's never enough time to say everyone's name, because it takes an army for any one person to get ahead. And that's a beautiful thing at the same time, though, but, it's important to share the stories of those people that were there, and too, that were helping other people on the way.
Absolutely.